11, chapter 5:11 says, Have have no fellowship with the work, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. That's not the whole scripture, but I just highlighted that. I want you to listen to that. The whole Bible is talking about unfruitful works, meaning things done in vain, things that doesn't profit you. It's fruitless, it's profitless, it's done for nothing. That's why God said, don't lay around, because when you lay around and do nothing, it's the devil's playground. The idle mind is the devil's playground. I come to you because I love you. This ain't the love that I could have found in the world. This ain't the love that I could have ever gave you if I was still out there smoking weed, having sex, and doing all type of drinking. This ain't the love I would have did. Instead of me making this video, I'll be somewhere turning up. Trust me. But this is a love that God gave me to give to you. I sure enough love you. I love you. I really do. I love you. I would not take this time out to do this if I didn't love you. But I love God first. But if whatever he loves, I loves. The Bible tells us to have no fellowship with the unfruitful work of darkness, but rather reprove them. That's what I'm doing now. Not me, but the word of God. But rather reprove them. For it is a shame to speak in those things which are done of them in secret. But all things are reproved and made manifest by the light. For whatsoever doeth make manifest is light. Wherefore he said, Awake thou that sleep, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give you light. This is a warning. God said, wake up, because what you think you're doing is right is not nothing but deception. Remember, deception is it's so close to the truth, but it's a little bit off. And God said, if I don't got your whole mind, your whole heart, and your whole soul, I don't want none of it. I don't want absolutely none of it. Deception is so close to the truth, but it's just a little bit off. That's how the devil works. He'll take the Bible and put it in your face. I heard this woman preaching to the point where my soul was moved until she started speaking in tongues. And I said, look at that power. And it's being used for nothing. We got to wake up. I said we because I'm still learning. I'm still learning. God is not going to do anything in vain. Why would he tell you to talk to somebody in the unknown tongue and they can't understand it? It's confusing. It's very confusing. 1 Corinthians 14:33 said, For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints. Listen to what he said. He said he's in all the churches of the saints. You got to remember who's the first church. You are. Before brick, wood, and stone, you are the church. He said, for God is not the author of confusion. And those evil men don't understand judgment, but anybody that seeks God understand all things. So therefore, if I'm going to speak to you in an unknown tongue, I'm not only going to interpret that, but I'm going to make sure that you and I both understand it. Because if I'm speaking an unknown language and I can't understand what I'm saying, that just shows to me that I might not have God in me. I might not be seeking God, because those who see God understand all things. So if I'm speaking a language that I can't understand, that goes contrary to the word of God in Proverbs 28:5. We understand all things. But there's no use for me to speak in another tongue. You know why? Because the language, the church language, the word of God is spoken in every language now. Every language. You better believe if I'm walking down the street, me being an African American speaking an English language, see a girl who's Chinese, and God need to get a word to her, but he needs to get it to her from just that immediate moment. And he's in her head, but the devil's working to block that. God's going to find a way to do it. You better believe when I run into her and the Lord want her to know something, I'm going to start speaking in Chinese right then and there without having to learn it. That's the spirit. That's how the spirit works. But I have not ran into nobody that actually needed me to talk to them in their own language, other than my own language, because it wasn't needed. But you better believe if it was needed, God's going to put the power in me, and I'm going to start speaking in that person's language without having to learn the language. That's all the tongues were for. I just wanted to lay that on you guys, but it breaks one of the second commandments. God said it's a tradition you're doing. You're being taught to do that. You're being taught to do that because your peoples did it and your peoples did it. When Paul made it perfectly clear, he made it perfectly clear that the tongues will be done with. Let all things be done in decently and order. He said, if a man think of himself to be a prophet or a spirit or spiritual, let him acknowledge that the things that I write unto you are commandments of the Lord. But if any man be ignorant, let him be ignorant. Wherefore, brothers, convect to prophesy and forbid not to speak with tongues. Let everything be done decently and order.